Hey guys, Zack here, and this is my review of One Piece Season 1 Episode 4. So, this episode mainly establishes a lot of different plot points while also explaining Luffy's past and how he came to become a Devil Fruit user, as well as how he came into possession of his signature hat. Okay, so the series starts off with a couple of pirates from Buggy's crew happening upon Nami, who tricks them into wandering onto her ship so she can steal their ship, and then they capsize because of a storm, which she says to look out for, and it's kind of funny. And she's slowly making her way to Buggy's compound in the background of all this, but that's not what the majority of this thing is. I mean, her story becomes relevant later a little bit because she does get the map that she's been looking for, and I'll explain that in a little bit. But the majority of this episode is telling the story of Luffy and how he decided to become a pirate. So apparently when Luffy was younger, he hung out with a character named Shanks, who was the captain of his own ship, and the two were very close, even despite the fact that Luffy kept getting mocked at by Shanks because Shanks thought he would never become a pirate. And as Shanks and his pirate buddies are all in the bar, we never actually learn the name of his pirate crew, but as they're all hanging out in the bar, these mountain bandits show up, and their leader, whose name is never actually explained, asks the lady for 8 barrels of whiskey. I think that's what they were after. And the lady comes to explain that Luffy and that Shanks and his friends in fact drank it all, so there's none left. And then Shanks offers the last bottle, but the mountain bandit not only refuses, but shatters it and spills it everywhere. So Shanks tries to clean it up and then storms out. And then the bandits storm out because, of course, they did. They weren't exactly friendly for reasons I'll get into later. So Shanks and his crew just laugh it off, but Luffy is extremely upset and eats out of spite for the mountain crew. And then Shanks realizes that Luffy wound up eating the devil fruit Shanks was holding onto, which gave Luffy his powers. And too late, realized what Luffy was eating and tried to make him spit it out by shaking him upside down from the ankles, which just made him faceplant into the floor. And then Luffy goes and tries to make the mountain bandits apologize and is almost killed for it. He isn't doing too good a job at fighting them, but he does try. Shanks meanwhile sees the commotion, realizes that even the mayor has showed up and is trying to beg for Luffy's life, but the mountain leader refuses. So Shanks shows up and tries to fight them off with his crew, and one guy puts a bullet to his head, and Shanks says that because he put a gun to Shanks's head, that because the guy put a gun to Shanks's head, that he was willing to put his life on the line. And then one of Shanks' guys pulls out a gun of his own and shoots him in the back, and shoots the guy who was putting a gun to Shanks' head in the back of the head. It's confused. I know that I didn't word that correctly, but that's what happened. Yeah, guy pulls out a gun and puts it to Shanks' head. One of Shanks' guys pulls out a gun and puts it behind the other guy's head and shoots him in the head, and takes him out. And then the mountain leader is upset and kind of angry because they weren't fighting fair. But then Shanks points out that they're pirates, they don't have to play fair. I mean, that is kind of the point. You don't really have to play fair when you're a pirate. Shanks gets upset, and then Shanks is upset because they threatened one of his friends, and that's why he's there. And then there's a short-lived battle between the mountain bandits and the pirates, and then one guy is able to defeat all of the bandits with a single blast from his shotgun and just take them all out. And the leader pulls out a smoke bomb at that point and escapes onto a boat and throws Luffy in the ocean, which he is now weak to because he is a devil fruit user, and that's a major weakness of it. Ironic, given that Luffy is a pretty good swimmer. But after as the leader is gloating, a giant sea monster comes out of the ocean and eats the leader and tries to eat Luffy until Shanks shows up and manages to scare it off at the cost of his arm. Winds up saving Luffy, but he doesn't have an arm from that point forward. And then Shanks' pirate crew managed to escape, or getting ready to leave the island. And in one last little teasing from Shanks about how Luffy's never going to become a pirate, Luffy says that he will become the greatest pirate of all time and become the king of the pirates. To which Shanks responds that if and only if he does manage to pull it off, he will acknowledge Luffy as a true pirate. Until then, he gives Luffy the straw hat that Shanks commonly wears and gives it to Luffy and tells him to return it when he does in fact become the greatest pirate of all time, and then leaves. And this is all a flashback in Luffy's head, by the way. He's spacing out because he just narrowly lost his hat because of a wave. And then Luffy sees a giant bird in the sky and tries to catch it. And it doesn't pan out well. Yeah, Luffy gets his head caught in the beak of the bird and is flown over Buggy's compound with Zoro in tow, because Zoro is chasing after him with the paddles, and actually picks up some of Buggy's crew who try to take over the ship and fail miserably because Zoro is like, no. He's just like, oh, so you're trying to take over the ship? And then he just smacks them all in the face, and you don't actually see him smack them all in the face, but you do see the whole that the three members of the crew that are on board Luffy's ship are all battered and bruised. So that's a thing. Luffy, and then meanwhile Nami has made her way to Buggy's compound and is running from some pirates with the map to the Grand Line in her hand. And then, but on Buggy's orders, the bird is shot out of the sky, and Luffy falls out of its mouth and lands right next to Nami, and is completely fine. And that's where the episode ends. He just falls out of the sky. Everybody's like, oh, was that dude that fell out of the sky? Is he all right? And he's completely fine. He just shakes it off and is completely fine. But I like this episode because it actually establishes what happened with the main character and all that. I mean, yeah, that's a pretty good way to do it. I mean, as a flashback, I mean, Luffy, I mean, it is kind of fillery because it takes place over the span of like 5 seconds, because it's only happened in like 5 minutes. It was only happening in like a 5-minute period, and Luffy had a flashback, and didn't actually say anything to Zoro about it. It's just a little internal monologue for Luffy for this entire episode. And it is a bit fillery on that point, because it does establish why Luffy decided to become the king of the pirates, how he got his hat, how he got his powers, but it also stretches out what should have been a little 5-minute episode, a 5-minute point in the episode. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just I don't particularly like how it was handled. I would have preferred it better if Luffy and Zoro had a talk about how Luffy came to be a pirate. That would have been a much better touch. And it also does explain a little bit of Zoro's backstory and how he became a bounty hunter, albeit in a bit of a shorter, more concise point. It explains how he didn't start off as a pirate. He went looking for a friend, but then got lost and became a bounty hunter to pay for different transportations home. And I mean, there's not much to it. That's really it. I mean, yeah, he kind of got lost, and and Luffy and Zoro have no idea where they're going. That's why they're lost in the middle of the ocean and just happen to stumble upon Buggy's compound. Though Nami does become their navigator later. Presumably in the next episode, given the description, but yeah, that's really it. There's not much else to say. I mean, yeah, it explains Luffy's backstory, which is good. It's a bit fillery, as I said, but it does work because he is kind of spacing out for who knows how long. And it also ties together the subplot with Nami and Luffy, so it just ties it all together in the final moments of this episode, which is great. It works, but I don't particularly like how the backstory was handled. I feel like it could have been handled better. You know what I'm saying? It could have been handled just a little bit better. I mean, just a little bit. It could have been. I mean, the episode's great for what it is. I just feel like the backstory could have been handled a little bit better, but that's just my 2 cents on the whole matter. But if you guys have in fact seen this episode of One Piece, what did you guys think? Let me know in the comments below or over on my Discord server, link in the description as always. And until then, thank you guys so much for watching this episode. If you liked it, hit that like and the subscribe button. Also be sure to follow me on Facebook and on Twitter in the description below. And until next time, I will see you guys in the next video. Peace!